Putin's axis of evil now includes India. West must take action. What do you think about India's military and economic cooperation with Russia? The problem has angered Western politicians since Moscow's all-out invasion of Ukraine last February. The US and its allies have been tough on the Putin government, rushing to transport military aid to Kyiv and agreeing to a price of $60 per barrel for Russian oil, whereas Russian hydrocarbons are not banned, but India generally refuses. Cooperate. Increase Russia's oil tenfold last year, total trade has increased 400% this year, or continue arms and military purchases, India is worth $13 billion in 6 months, even if it does not comply with the UN resolution for Russian aggression. It is determined in its own way to balance relations with India, Russia, and its Western rivals. As Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar bluntly put it, "I want to make it clear that we don't want our companies to buy Russian oil, the option to buy, if the policy is smart. We will try to achieve the best results for the benefit of the Indian people, and we are trying to do that." While it's easy to explain what's going on in narrow trade, Washington in particular has accepted the passing of government sanctions for India and even helped Russia avoid sanctions by improving Russian product and selling it to ours country, but the truth is more. In this context, the United States and its allies hope to quickly separate India from Russia and pull it firmly into the Western camp, but the baggage, real restrictions, and real balance of power in the South are steeped in history. Asia that India seeks. It has been preserved since independence. Between 70% and 80% of India's military equipment comes from the Soviet Union and Russia, and 2/3 of arms imports have come from Russia since 1992. War. The United States supported Pakistan's wars with India, including the Strategic Plan and the Bangladesh Liberation War, but failed to assist India's efforts for freedom, development, and construction early on. Subsequently, the policies of Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru alarmed in the US and UK, which imposed strict restrictions on their companies' investments in India to protect foreign ownership and limit technology sharing, including the sale of weapons. In contrast, the former Soviet Union built mines, steelworks, and heavy industries, trained local experts, and sold weapons, mostly at a loss, with a few exceptions and limitations. Although an unofficial concession was made to India during the Cold War and it still refuses to join the treaty today, many in Washington find it very sympathetic to Moscow. The Soviet Union became India's most important partner when territorial disputes with China led to the 1962 Sino-Indian War and the Sino-Soviet split. Russia directly benefited from these relations and continues to develop them. While the United States seeks to contain China and sees India as an important part of that effort, New Delhi fears losing Russia as a counterweight to Beijing in Eurasia. Putin's downfall in Ukraine and his growing support for China during his tenure in the Kremlin has made it clear that only India, being too harsh on Russia, is now irrevocably making it harder for China, Pakistan's own economy. It adds to the fear that the "will throw it into your arm." This risk increases with addiction. CPEC Part. India seeks to surround China and effectively resolve ongoing territorial disputes while maintaining its decision-making independence and gaining respect as a rising power. Among other things, this requires significant investments in the country's defense industry. Indian authorities have made exiting the arms trade a priority. Weapons purchases from the United States, Israel, and France are increasing, but not fast enough, and the technology transfer ban is still around. India can justify criticisms of Western hypocrisy when it comes to buying Russian oil, because it buys oil below the G7 ceiling price and then legally sells refined oil from Russian crude to Europe. A lot of Russian oil still enters the Western market through other intermediaries. If the Europeans did not eliminate their dependence on Russian hydrocarbons, it is difficult to understand why India should. As EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Josep Borrell himself stated, India is buying Russian oil, that's normal. If India can buy oil cheaper because of the cap we put on oil prices, the less money Russia gets, the better. Russia's inability to supply India with weapons and promised product changes is increasing due to the interruption of talks on Russia's continued agreement to purchase oil in Indian rupees and the decline in Ukraine. America and its allies, no matter what measures have been taken by Russia against the whole of India, this process will take years, even years. It is based on Russian technology. New Delhi is facing the loss of Russia's Eurasian balance, although there is no doubt in the US commitment to own China. It takes a lot of approval and significant policy changes ahead of the risk to his power. With decades of history, the whims of India's geopolitical situation, the strategic limitations of India's power relations and arms trade, and India's response to the world's future leadership ambitions, the road ahead for the United States and its Western allies is long and difficult.